Hey, Michael, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Hey, good. Hey, so you and I are together starting this new series where we're going to talk about different situations we have encountered out in the wild, and then let's talk about what our friends that are selling products could have done better. How does that sound?
That sounds good.
Cool. So let's pick up the first one, right? So, I came across this situation. Maria is an amazing salesperson, and she's pursuing this whale of a deal. It's 280K. Okay, and she's done everything by the book. She's done the proper discovery. She's dug out the pain points. She's dug in the knife. It really made the customer feel the pain. All of them. Okay, and like I said, it's a 280K deal. And she kept pushing the deal one by one through different stages. The deal is at commit. Okay, and every time the deal comes up in the pipeline meeting, and she's like, "Yes, this is happening." So we're 1 week away from the close date, which is just right at the end of the quarter. Okay, um, everything is in commit stage. The deal is forecasted, and on the last day, Michael, I kid you not, the very last day of the quarter, at around 1 p.m., when the deal doesn't come in, everybody starts panicking. That's when the VP of sales starts digging into what is happening. Remember, it's a 280K deal. It'll make or break the quarter. So the VP of sales starts digging in, and then it turns out that the champion on the customer side for Maria had sent an email 10 days ago saying, "Hey, everything looks good, Maria, but the CFO is reviewing the pricing."
Yeah.
The email came in late at night. Maria didn't think much of it. She's like, "Yeah, it's all cool. Let him review. What's the problem? We've done all the work." But then the PO doesn't come in.
Do you
What's
know
what's
if she,
going on here?
well, I mean, do you know if she communicated that to the VP of sales?
Very interesting. So the email got logged in Salesforce because this customer uses Salesforce activity capture. Okay, but she did not communicate it to her boss because she didn't think it was a big deal.
Yeah, I would probably want to know if that was stated earlier on anywhere in the dialogue along the way. Like how old is this deal? Has it been in the system for a long time? Is it a month old, 2 months old, 6 months old?
Now, from what I can tell, this deal was within the quarter, within the customer's expected sales cycle. It wasn't like very stale or anything. It seemed like it had momentum.
All the touch points were there. I think it's really
Everything
hard
on.
for a VP of sales or a CRO to really, especially at scale, dig into every single piece of business, right?
Yeah.
If there was an email exchange, you know, I hate using the overused phrase, but happy ears, right? Um, they've got a verbal commitment this is going to close by the end of the quarter. Then something at the last minute comes up, or not even the last minute, could come up 5, 10 days in advance and say our CFO wants to review the pricing. All the questions that I would ask around that are, when did the CRO find out about this?
Yeah.
If budget has been approved, then why are we going back and forth about pricing now? And what steps should be taken? If we don't have a relationship with the CFO, how do we get in front of that CFO? But at 2 o'clock on the last day of the month,
Mhm.
um, you don't want to wait until that long. So any means of flagging that, and truthfully, the only real way to do that, given that this is a big deal, is to dig into every variable in the MEDIC framework, right?
Yeah.
But in this case, was the CFO listed as the economic buyer?
I
A,
think
a,
that's a good point.
yeah, because sometimes if there's not enough discovery throughout the sales process, the salesperson may not say, "Hey, look, I know you have jurisdiction, you have budget approval, but who actually signs the paperwork?" Um, Getting an answer to that 10 days, 15 days, a month in advance, 2 months in advance to know, hey, in our notes, in our system, if it's being reviewed weekly by a sales leader, is going to know, like, hey, this isn't done yet. It's got to go to
Yeah.
the CFO
Yeah.
instead of waiting to the last minute. Now, what are we going to do?
I want to interrupt you. I think the key phrase in what you just said is doing discovery throughout throughout the sales process. I've always made the mistake, and I know a lot of people think that discovery is something that you do at the beginning of the sales cycle, but you highlighted the key phrase throughout the sales cycle. And I think that was the failure here, Michael.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think if you have a defined funnel in your system and you know that, what constitutes what qualifies a commit deal based on your MEDDIC completion, right? Um, Again, VPs of sales have limited visibility into every exchange that's happening between a rep and a salesperson. Hopefully, you've got a call recorder, but even then, how does that get factored into the overall
Yeah,
probability of that deal closing?
these guys had a call recorder. I think everybody does these days. But again, the point is, and the email, by the way, was logged in. The problem is nobody has time to go review all those call logs or the emails, right? So how do we solve this problem ahead of time? And I think the answer is, and what you said is, to me, it feels like Maria never asked the question that who actually signs the check. And it wasn't the CRO, the buyer, they were the buyer, but the economic buyer in the MEDDIC
Yeah.
framework was the CFO. And I think if Maria had, you know, found that out earlier on about what is the procurement process, who signs the check, this could have been avoided. Do you agree or like no?
Yeah, I do. I would also have to ask like who and if there is a champion in the deal. If the
Mm,
CRO is the champion, there's an easier lever to pull. Again, you wouldn't want to do it this late in the game, but
mm,
say, hey, listen, you're going to have the CRO go have a meeting right now with the CFO to make sure that we can get this thing ironed out and closed. And often, and I don't know relevant to this situation, there's some sort of incentive to get them to close by a
yeah,
certain date, right? Which is bad in SaaS altogether because often people extend those discounts or whatever incentive
yeah.
product or whatever else. But if you have a champion in the deal, you could have had this knocked out days ago,
Hmm.
weeks ago. Okay, I'm your VP of sales. See if you can get the CFO on the phone. I'll have a conversation with him and say, hey, where are we with your CFO, your CRO? I'll have a conversation with the CRO saying, hey, look, here's where we are. You're a sales guy. I'm a sales guy. We've got this thing forecasted. Can you have a conversation with the CFO to see if we can get this thing locked up this week? Why do we have to wait till the last minute if budget's already been approved?
I'll share an experience with my own experience from my previous companies. The scenario that you're outlining used to happen all the time. People would wait till like the day or the day before of the quarter, and then the only way to get that deal, closed before midnight, before we all turned pumpkins, was just discounting, and that was a terrible practice. I
Yeah.
think that's key.
Oh, it's a horrible practice. And the other part of it too is that if you're relying on deal reviews every week to go through every deal, you're only as good as what you can see in that deal review. If reps are going in and they're forecasting it as a commit, and you go through MEDDIC and all the MEDDIC is in there and it's filled out, the form fill is filled out, economic buyer, we know who that is, we know the decision making criteria, we know the decision making process, we know who the champion is. But if it's difficult as a sales leader to dig into each one of those things.
Yeah,
Is this a champion, or is this a coach? Is this somebody that's going to tell you how to get it done, or are they actually going to go sell it for you?
right.
But if you don't have anything to support that, and it's not to say that salespeople are disingenuous. They're not trying to be,
No, I
but they
don't think so.
also don't want to be called out publicly about not knowing where their deal is.
Yeah, of course not. Yeah, I mean that's just a human thing. You made me think about something else. I think in this case, the medic, all of the fields of medic were completely filled out, including the economic buyer. That makes me think that there is a sales enablement thing, and I think we might have failed Maria in the sense that we didn't coach her or train her to really recognize who is an
Absolutely.
actual economic buyer versus somebody who is just a user or an influencer. I think that's what happened here.
Yeah, and salespeople, rightfully so, get excited when they're talking to somebody that could be a champion or an influencer that says, no, I have the budget for this. It's my project. I'm going to buy it. But if you don't ask that second question, like who actually signs the paperwork, then you literally don't know. You also don't know if the person that you're talking to has ever purchased software before inside this company. There may be other steps that you're not even aware of, right? But figuring out, getting ahead of those things and having a litmus or a data baseline on the back end that
Yeah.
reflects what is in your CRM, what is in Slack, what is in the call recordings that you have, getting something to reflect what actually happened and not what the rep said happened.
I, the other question, and I just want to hit on that again because I think it's super important. The other question to ask, which you just said, is has the buyer purchased a similar piece of software before in this company? And and I don't think that question was asked.
Yeah.
That is a really good call out.
It's a tough one too. And even if they have, but the company is scaling, the process may have changed.
Yes.
So getting confirmation throughout the sales funnel and saying, okay, look, this is a 90-day sales cycle, hypothetically.
Right.
In the first week of this conversation, you had this exchange with your contact that said, yes, I purchased software in this company now. Have you had the ability to go in and confirm that that process is still the same process?
Yeah.
Because that's the decision-making process piece of the medic, right? But getting confirmation throughout the sales cycle is super important. And now that it's sitting on the CFO's desk, and the CFO's job is to watch every penny, depending on the size of the company. You could have a champion, but the champion's not going to sign. You can even have what is listed as an economic buyer, but it might not be the true economic buyer.
Yeah.
In fact, the C on the CRO, the commercial or chief title, can be misleading
I think that might it can be misleading.
because you would think, oh no, this is the CRO, he can sign for it. But I've worked in companies where the CEO signs off on every purchase.
I think that's not very uncommon, especially in mid-market companies,
Yeah.
300, 400 people companies. And like for a deal like 280K, I would definitely expect the CEO to be at least aware of the deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you've got, essentially you've got multiple data sources, right? You've got call recordings, you have CRM, you have email, you have Slack, and I think that's the more modern way of having exchanges with people that are moving along a sales funnel, is to have minute-to-minute contact with somebody if you need it. But being able to synthesize all of those different data points into something that isn't arguable, but is not exact, but far more finite and addressable based on the synthesis of that data across the funnel, I think it's just really important. Because back to, any sales leader will tell you that visibility is everything. And if
Yeah.
you don't have visibility, and then you get visibility, and you don't even know if it's the right visibility because
You
you've
don't
got to
even know
check.
what's happening.
Right. So from a time consumption standpoint, if you've got to go through Medic or MedPick on every single deal, first of all, that takes time. And then the fields are filled out in Salesforce or whatever, or HubSpot or however you're collecting the data, then you've got to question the authenticity of each one of those things. Again, not because salespeople are intentionally misleading. It's because they don't want to see anything that's going to screw this up. So they kind of turned a blind eye to, oh, by the way, our CFO has to sign off. And don't worry, it's all good. But
Yeah.
the CFO needs to look at this first.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so I think that's what happened here. I think for better or worse, the discovery wasn't done throughout the sales cycle, and I think you highlighted the word throughout, which is important. I think the economic buyer that was marked in Medic was not really the economic buyer. I think another thing that could have been done better that you said is asking the question, have you bought software like this in the recent past? Because that does two things. It asks the question, are you the signer? As well as if anything has changed as the company grows. Um, and I feel bad for Maria in this case. She will get the deal, but you know, I think there's some learnings here.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think knowing the business outcome that the company is looking to achieve by purchasing this and aligning that to something happening within their organization, a compelling event. That way you don't really have to map back to your discount expires at the end of the quarter. It's,
Right.
hey, listen, the timeline that we discussed was that you wanted to get this in place because you're integrating or buying 3 other pieces of software and you wanted to prioritize this by this date.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then if there's a hard and fast timeline that the CFO is also compelled to get this done.
Right.
And but in this case, like me being the over, I wouldn't call myself aggressive, but the assertive sales leader that I would say get me on the phone with the CFO or the CRO who's potentially the champion in this
Right.
situation and exercise that relationship to the fullest of your extent. But again, if you don't know because it was one line in one email that was 10 days ago
Right.
that
You
never got
missed it.
surfaced, you're literally got a blanket over your head waiting to get hit with a hammer.
Oh, that sounds painful. You got a blanket over your head waiting to get hit. I might have to use that one.
Yeah,
No,
I
but
mean,
this is, yeah.
so that's the way that I would look at it.
Yeah.
It's and I also think, and this is a bit of a side note too, is that if you create the right culture on the team, that people will surface these things because they want to, because they want to close the deal, not because they're afraid they did something wrong.
I think the culture part is also important. I don't think that was a problem in this case, but you do hit upon an important point is if you don't have a culture of, yeah, sure, I can talk about my deals openly, then I think people just hide things.
Yeah, and also if you're doing too much as a sales leader, then you want that rep to take all the win, right?
Yeah, of
So
course you do. Yeah, you
yeah, I
want.
mean,
I would have loved for Maria to have closed this deal and
yeah, me too.
take a
Maria
lap. Yeah,
Maria sounds like
she
a good
will.
salesperson that got
She
caught
does.
up.
Yeah, I think it's just a honest mistake. I'm sure she'll get the deal. But this was a really good analysis. I thank you, Michael. This was awesome.
Oh, this stuff is fun for me.
Cool. Awesome. I'll stop
Especially
recording. Yeah.
especially when it's not a real deal and my ass is on the line. I think I told you